All right. So hey, my name's Aaron, and I'm one of the developers working on Clams. We're building a browser UI for core Lightning nodes. So just trying to create a nice UI around all the great stuff that's being built over at core Lightning. So I'll give a bit of a overview of the project, like what we're about, some of the project goals, what's on our roadmap, sort of where we're heading. It's kind of changing all the time as we get feedback, but we have like an idea of what we want to build. And then I'll go through and show you how to run Clams locally and connect it to a Regtest node. It'll be using the CLI and stuff like that. So if any of you are sort of technically minded but aren't familiar with the CLI, just hit me up after the call or at some point, and I can help you through that. But the idea is just to be able to get a chance to like run the app and have a play around with it on Regtest before you so you can get used to it before you connect like a mainnet node. And then we'll go through and demonstrate some of the features of the app. What is Clams? Like I said before, it's just like a browser UI. Pretty simple. We think of the core Lightning, your core Lightning node as like a backend server, and we're building just a client that interacts with it. So all the secure stuff, all the hardcore cryptography, everything stays on your device, on your core Lightning node, and we're just basically interacting with the RPC server that your node exposes. And so why did we decide to build Clams? Me and my mate John, who's working on it with me, we both run core Lightning nodes at home, and we wanted something that we could just basically start making payments when we're out and about, from our nodes at home. And so there are already some solutions out there for connecting to your node, and some really great solutions. But we found a lot of them, if they did support core Lightning, it required installing extra software, and also they didn't work on a lot of the specific features that I think make core Lightning different. And so that's kind of what I got here. I wanted a UI for all the great features. So we wanted a nice UI for Bulk 12, the Bookkeeper accounting stuff, which I think is a massive game changer. That because we were kind of asking, why aren't we using our nodes regularly? And one of the problems was just it became an accounting nightmare when I tried living off Lightning for 6 months. There's like a service here in Australia where you can pay bills through Lightning and everything, and the tax problems of having to account for all those transactions was a massive headache. So Bookkeeper is just a massive feature that I think helps make it more practical to use the nodes, like use Lightning on a daily basis. And liquidity ads is another feature that I think is really great and unique to Bulk 12. So we've started out just building, just the basic functionality of the UI, just basic Lightning functionality, and we're now starting to branch out into a bit more specific core Lightning features. So we released some Bulk 12 support recently. We've got some really basic Bookkeeper stuff up there. But we're working on some more advanced stuff with the Bookkeeper at the moment, which I can talk about a little bit further. And then basically I saw the thing that inspired this particular way of doing things was I saw a guy called JB55. He's not on Twitter anymore. He's mostly working over at Noster because he works on the Damus app. But he was doing some really interesting stuff connecting to core Lightning nodes. He was doing like serverless checkout and some really interesting things, and just the way he thought about using a core Lightning node as a server, like a personal server, personal money server, and connecting to it through the Lightning network itself. We'll talk a little bit more about sort of how that works and everything, but just a really innovative way of like connecting to core Lightning nodes. And so seeing his work kind of inspired what we're doing here. We've kind of iterated on a lot of the ideas that he started with. Project goals. We want a secure, private, and fast connection to your node. We had personally, tried connecting to our node through like a package like Umbral or something like that, and that all runs on Tor only. And yeah, just the experience with Tor is just kind of suboptimal. It doesn't really feel like you're living in the future, which Bitcoin I find tends to make you feel like you're living in the future when you're using Bitcoin. And when you're trying to connect over Tor, it's really, really slow, unreliable. So we wanted something that was still secure and private, but we wanted it to be, feel like a really modern payments app, like really slick and works quite fast. Oh, and by the way, I meant to say at the start, if anyone has any questions, just interrupt me and ask as we go on. And next thing, so we built it as a PWA, which is a progressive web app. So it's an app that runs in the browser. But the cool thing about progressive web apps is you can save them, and they become like an icon on your phone or on your computer, and they kind of look indistinguishable from a native app once they're saved, which is kind of cool. So it kind of feels like a native app, but really it's just running in the browser. And so there's a few advantages of going this approach. There's definitely some trade-offs, but one of the great advantages is it's available on all devices that have a web browser. So you can kind of think of the browser as like an app distribution, and so you get a really, really wide distribution because almost all devices have a web browser these days, and it means we're not reliant on the App Store. In previous years, not so much at the moment, but in previous years, the Apple App Store and just app stores in general have been pretty negative towards Bitcoin apps, and they tend to get pulled from the App Store without any kind of notice. Things aren't so bad at the moment, but we kind of don't want that reliance on the App Store because there may become a future time when it goes back to being Bitcoin App Stores not being very friendly to Bitcoin apps. So yeah, no reliance on the App Store, which is good, I think. Which native apps on Android don't rely on the App Store. You can install them separately, but there are a lot of iPhone users as well. So yeah, we didn't want that sort of censorship risk. Gives us a small bundle size for low bandwidth devices because we're using the browser and it's already installed on the device. Our app at the moment comes in somewhere around about 2 megabytes, depending on how much of the app you've loaded up, because we're sort of dynamically importing all the different parts of the app to try and sort of minimize the bandwidth that's used. And once you visit it once, it downloads it and basically caches it. So yeah, you're looking at something somewhere around the size of like 2 megabytes, whereas like a lot of apps on the App Store tend to be about 80 megabytes. So pretty good for that. And then short iteration cycles. So there's kind of a long process of getting a release through the app stores that really slows down that sort of iteration cycle. So by being a browser app, if there's a bug, we can get a bug fix out. If someone reports a bug, we can get one out, within an hour, and it just refreshes on the device and they're good to go. And same with features. So we can try things out. We can just get these shorter iteration cycles and get feedback and then integrate and then release really quickly, which I think will help in the long run. So the goal is creating a PWA. Another goal is a clean, intuitive UX. So that's sort of selfishly as well. Like I want to, we're running like a node at home, and I want my wife to be able to make payments with that node. So we want the app to be really friendly to people that aren't, deep in the Bitcoin space and understand everything. So it's a hard goal and we don't always achieve it, but we're trying to make it feel like a modern sort of payments app, like a PayPal or something like that, at least for just basic sort of Bolt 11 invoices and things. And our ultimate goal is we want to be able to onboard like new Bitcoiners easily end to end. So maybe down the line, we might look into something like Greenlight or Voltage, and we might be able to, because currently the app, if you don't have a node, then it's useless to you, but we might be able to create some sort of nice onboarding flow where you can go straight to Clams. We can spin up a Core Lightning node either through Greenlight or Voltage, connect to it and have someone sort of ready to go pretty quickly, hopefully. So that might be the end goal, but there's a lot of work to do to get there. And And I just like the idea of it, yeah, being, sort of being your own bank. It's end to end between Clams and Core Lightning and whatever infrastructure running. You can have a full interface to manage your own money. So project goals continued. We want to be privacy focused. So there's no logging, no tracking, no Google Scripts. We have no idea how many people are using the app. We want people to be able to run it just locally, like what I'll show you after this, how you can run it locally, and it's fully open source as well. So anyone can audit the code, anyone can see that we're not logging or tracking. And this is just the way we want our software that we use in our day-to-day. I would rather be that way. So we're not going to do any logging in our code. And then device-specific functionality. So we want you to be able to run the app on multiple devices, and each device we kind of optimize the UI for what it's best for. So on mobile, it's optimized for simple payments just on the go, something like Zeus. And you'll be able to see some view like what channels are active and things like that, but generally not a lot of the heavier sort of management type of stuff. And then on desktop you'll also be able to do simple payments and such, but it's kind of going to be more optimized for the node management kind of stuff, kind of like more like Ride the Lightning. So it's kind of a cross of both of those types of apps. And so you'll be able to manage channels, do all your accounting, all that kind of stuff. So much more complex on the desktop. So just try and make use of the advantages of each device type. And then we want it to be international. So we've built internationalization in from the start. We only have English translations at the moment, but it's all built in there, ready to translate into multiple languages. So if anyone wants to help out with that, we can definitely work with people to get some translations in there. But yeah, our ultimate goal is to have this translated into many, many languages because Bitcoin is international. So the roadmap. On the left, this is just taken from our docs site. This is some of the stuff we've implemented. So just basic Bolt 11, create, pay, and scan, key sand payments. You can encrypt and cache the data on the device, payment history, off-chain balance, just your Lightning balance. We've implemented the client-side LN URL protocol, so it recognizes the main LN URL types if you were to scan them or try and send to them. Some basic stuff here, like direct connection to a node, custom WebSocket proxies, which I'll talk about the connection and such and how that works. We've got a basic Bookkeeper accounting dashboard, and we're working with Satoshi Pacioli, who's a Bitcoin-specific accountant. We're working with him on some cool stuff like profit and loss statements. Basically, just working with him, like what are the problems that he sees when working with Bitcoin, businesses that are running on Bitcoin and happen to be running Lightning nodes. Like what sort of data do they need to see, how to visualize it, how to export it. And ultimately, I'd love if we could replace something like Coinly, which I use personally, but it kind of doesn't sit right with me exporting all my payments and just uploading it to their server, because who knows what they're doing with it. So we're going to look in to see if we can maybe do a Lightning focused, end-to-end accounting kind of thing. But it's kind of a long-term goal there. We can scan BIP21 QRs. We don't support any of the on-chain features of the core Lightning nodes at the moment, but when we do, we'll probably default to creating BIP21 QR codes and have a really easy toggle to be able to toggle to just a Bolt 11 specific or an on-chain specific. We have done Bolt 12 offers. So we support everything in Bolt 12 offers except for the recurrence feature. That's been taken out of the spec. So when that comes back in, we'll re-look into that. but yeah, we need to do some investigation as to whether we can do talking about the downsides of a web app. We might only be able to support that on Android devices, just because, yeah, iPhone progressive web apps, for obvious incentive reasons, they like to have the closed app store. They don't have full native app functionality, and we may need that for the recurrence. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. And then, yeah, some of the stuff we've got coming up, which I sort of just talked about some of it, but yeah, obviously supporting on-chain, just, sending, receiving, all that kind of stuff for on-chain, and your balance is probably coming up next. I'd like to do some coin control stuff, coin selection. I think it'd be interesting to maybe see if we can integrate something like Join Market or some sort of coin join stuff that we can do just on the client side, but still need to do some research on that. And then we still need to implement basic stuff, just like managing channels and peer management, things like that. We're looking at a liquidity ads dashboard because I think that's quite interesting. And then part of the accounting features is we need to be able to tag payments. So we need sort of additional metadata. And we think that'll be kind of just handy anyway, because we found in our personal experience a lot of the time you look back at a Lightning invoice and the description and things like that isn't that really helpful, and you can't really work out what it was. So just the ability to tag transactions and add notes to them and stuff like that, and store it locally on your device. Yeah, Bulk 12 recurrence report, which I mentioned. Looking into maybe a reckless plugin management UI. So again, thinking about kind of like end-to-end solution and make it easy for people if they could just, one-click install CL Boss, and then we have a UI for CL Boss just to get that running. And you can kind of imagine a future where the end user doesn't really have to understand channel management and have to worry too much about all of that kind of thing. And then that can all plug in back into the accounting stuff and the charts, and they can kind of have a good visual of what's going on. Yeah, so we'll get Clams. Well, I'll stop there if anyone has any questions. I can't really see much in terms of the way to chat, but just chime in if anyone's got any questions, and I'll start getting set up ready to show how we can connect locally. Okay, cool. So we'll drink here. So I'm going to use Polar to demonstrate this. If you haven't used Polar before, it's kind of a cool sort of UI for setting up a Lightning Reg test. You don't need to use Polar to connect it locally. If you have like a core Lightning node running on Reg test locally, you can just connect to that directly, which might be more simple if you have that already. But yeah, Polar is kind of, especially if you're not deep in the weeds of the technical stuff, Polar is just a great way to like play around and get a sense for like how it all works. It's an easy way to play around with it. So yeah, you download Polar, you'll need Docker as well. Once you've got that up and running, we can create a Lightning network. Actually, what I'll do is I'll import a network. So you can export Polar network configurations. I can make this available if people would find it useful. But I've just got one here where it's just a basic, an L&D node, a couple of core Lightning nodes, and a Claire node. And I've just got straight just a channel through each of them. And yeah, but you can set up any kind of network you want. And so the first thing we need to do is we need to, we'll get it started so that Docker recognizes it. There might be a better way of doing this, so someone let me know if they do know a better way, but this is how I've been doing it. I open up the dashboard for Docker, and then you can open it here in Visual Code. It might say something else if your default text editor or something else, but there's just a way you can edit the Docker compose file. And the reason we need to do that is we need to expose the WebSocket port and any other features that we want to add, and I'd like to add offers. So we got Alice, so we've got Bob here as the C Lightning node. So we just want to go experimental web. Let's look at port. You can just set it to any kind of valid port number, and we'll enable offers as well. So yeah, you need to, this is just in the Lightning D sort of config parameters. And then we just need to also expose that same port down here. Okay, so that's Bob, he's 7272. And we got Dave. Dave 7373. Same thing over here. Okay. So save that. Head back over to Polar, and if we stop that and restart, then that should be all enabled. So that's waiting to come online. So the next step is we need to clone down the repo. So you can go to github.com/Clams.tech/browser app, and we can clone down the repo. So just open up the terminal, click clone. All right, so that's clone the app, and we can cd change directory into the app directory. And we're using Yarn for package management. You can install with npm or pnpm or whatever you like to use. So I'll just install the app dependencies with Yarn. While that's happening, I'll just check in on Polar network. Which seems to be taking a long time to go online. Let me just check I didn't mess up this. Oh yeah, that would be why. So I'll restart that again. That was obviously making Core Lightning not happy. Restart. Okay, so we've installed the dependencies, and then we can run yarn dev and then add -http, because we don't, basically when we dev, we do run it with like a fake HTTPS TLS certificate, just for testing of like the camera and things like that. It requires HTTPS, but because we're all running locally here and we want to connect directly to the node without TLS, we'll just go ahead and run it on HTTP. So that is running the dev server. We'll copy that over. Okay, cool. So we got the app running here. So I'll just move these windows around. And it looks like all our nodes are running, which is good. So we can connect to Bob first. So click let's go here. And so this is the connection details of the node. And I guess, yeah, I should probably talk a little bit about how Clams connects to a node. Currently, we're supporting only over ClearNet. We just need to add support to our Proxy server, which I'll talk about in a sec, to add Tor support. But like I said at the start, we're really focused on mostly ClearNet, just because we think it's a better experience, and we think there's good ways of running like a VPN server and things like that, so you don't need to dox your home IP address. So basically what this does is I wrote a library called LN Message, which is similar to one of the libraries that JB55 had called LN Socket. And what it does is it basically, I think of it conceptually of like spinning up an sort of ultra light node in the browser. It has a node public key, but it advertises that it doesn't support any of the features of the network. And so all it can do is just like when you're connecting to any other node, it's doing that same process but from the browser. So there's like a kind of like a cryptographic handshake using the noise protocol to authenticate and set up basically a way of sending end-to-end encrypted messages from the browser to your node. So once it's connected, it's like ultra private. It's quite fast. And yeah, it's just a really cool way of connecting to a node without, you don't need to install any extra software on your node. You don't need to install an extra API or anything like that. It connects to it just like any other node would connect to your node. And I'll be able to I can show you that in the CLI, you actually see the browser show up as one of your peers. But yeah, if anyone has questions on that, just jump in and I can go into a little bit more detail, but I'll show you what it looks like. So we can grab the public key, then we want to go localhost, and then the port, I think it was 7272 for Bob. And then, so in the browser, like normally in the production app, that runs on HTTPS with a TLS cert, and the browser, as part of like browser requirements, they don't allow you to make a connection from a secure environment to an insecure environment. So you can't connect directly to an exposed WebSocket on your node from the production app. And so a way around that is you can do a thing called a WebSocket proxy. And so we have a server running. It accepts WebSocket connections from the production app. And then what it does is it makes a regular socket connection to your node, which is what most nodes do. They connect via TCP sockets. And it basically the server just receives messages from the browser and it just shuffles that on to the node and vice versa, and coming back and forth. And it's a trustless connection because, like I was saying before, it's end-to-end encrypted. So our server just sees encrypted binary traffic. It can't read anything or do anything like that. It does become a single point of failure, which is less than ideal. But it allows for connecting to the nodes in the browser now. I think in the future there is some work going on where you can expose the WebSocket port and it will have TLS built in. And if that becomes a thing, then the production app won't even need the WebSocket proxy. And we'd be pretty happy with that because we're running a server that costs a small amount of money, and we don't really want to be in the middle of the connection. It'd be great to connect straight to your node, like directly. It's more performant as well. But anyway, for the meantime, it's using a WebSocket proxy, which you can see there. And that's what we default to. But in this case, we want to connect directly to the node, which we can do. It's both running in without a TLS connection. So we can do a direct connection. We can select a non-TLS connection, and we can connect. And so that's gone and connected to Bob. So the next part of this way of connecting to a node is how do you allow, like, how do you authenticate and define the permissions for that node? And so that's the other part of what it's using, is using a thing called the Commando API, which is built into Core Lightning. So the more recent versions, it's built in. It originally was a separate plugin. And that Commando basically allows other nodes to make requests, RPC requests on your node. And typically you need to send an authentication token, which is called a rune. And that is a bearer token that defines what methods and what can be done on your node, essentially. So yeah, you want to be really careful, like passing around room tokens for your node, your mainnet node, because I always think of them as kind of like private keys, depending on how they're encoded and such. So one thing that we have done within Clams to try and mitigate or just give it an extra layer of safety. It's not foolproof, but what we do is, as I said before, when the browser is spinning up kind of like an ultralight node, it actually has a node ID, a public key, which we have here, and basically we use that as the private key, the associated private key with that public key is kind of like a session key. So we store that private key. You can encrypt it, as I'll show in the app a little bit later. But the idea being is that we'll have this persistent node ID, and that means you can actually restrict the room to that node ID from the get-go, which I think makes it just a little bit safer passing. So for instance, you might be on your computer and you're using the CLI to create a room, and then you need to get that to your phone, and you might put it in like Apple Notes or something like that. By restricting it to a public key, at least, if it got compromised on that process of getting it to the other device, it won't be able to be used unless they also had the private key that's just running in memory in the browser. So not impossible, but just it makes it a little bit safer. And so we've got these like kind of room recipes here. You could get just a read-only one if you just want to connect your node and just have it and just be able to see a balance and see the payments and stuff, but not be able to make any payments. We've got a Clams one, which is basically full app functionality, but we've tried to minimize what methods and such that we need. And then there's like an admin, which is just lets the app do anything on your node within, but it's still restricted to the node public key. And we have rate limits encoded in all of these as well, which I think is just a good practice, just to make sure no one can DOS your node with huge amounts of requests. So yeah, we can copy the Clams one, go over to Bob. In the actions, we can launch the CLI for Bob. So we've got the CLI there, we can paste that, and you can see, oh geez, that's going all weird. Well, I'll hit enter, but you can see it basically encodes a whole heap of restrictions. I can show in the UI what that looks like. So we'll copy the rune over. We can paste that in here, and you can see a little decode room button comes up. We can click that, and it gives you like more of a summary of what's going on. So you can see it's restricted to the ID that we had in the browser, and just defines which methods it can call, and you can see it's rate limited to 60 requests per minute, so 1 a second roughly. So we can save that, and then we're in. So it shows the Lightning balance here. It won't show any on-chain balance, as I was saying before, because we're not supporting that just yet. And then like a fiat balance here if you prefer that, and you can toggle them between, and that'll switch it all out through the app. But I'll go and connect another device here so we can do some transactions between them. It's an iPhone simulator. So we'll do the same thing for Dave. We'll look for info. Copy the public key. Local host 47373. Do a direct connection again, and then we'll do the same thing. Copy the rune recipe. Yeah, you can see the decoder rune again, just in a mobile UI. All right, so we've got Dave and Bob connected. So we'll start with just a simple receive. So I want to receive 21 sats. is, cheap is. Create the invoice, and so you've got that there, and you can scan that. Got the expiry, it shows it's pending. So we can copy the invoice here. Generally, you would scan the invoice, but it's kind of hard on the computer here, so I'll just use the send method where you paste it in. You can recognize it's a Lightning invoice there, so we'll go to next, and it just gives you kind of a summary of the invoice, how much it is, what's it for, when it expires, and we can send payment. And so on here, you get the notification, and the payment shifts to completed, and same here. And then if we go home, we now have like a recent payments. So you always see like the last payment you had, you can go there and see the details of that. So that's just basic Bolt 11 payments, receiving and sending. We can take a quick look at offers. So I haven't created any offers yet. We can create an offer. Definitely looking for feedback around the UX and the language and stuff around Bolt 12 offers. I kind of just made this up as I went along, kind of mapping it to I kind of liked the LN URL thinking of it. It's like an LN URL pay or an LN URL withdraw. But yeah, I still think the whole offers thing, I showed it to my wife and she had no idea what was going on. So yeah, there's a lot of work to do to make offers a bit more intuitive. Maybe once they're standard across all implementations, we can kind of switch to more of Bolt 12 just being the standard, and that'll be like that receive and send fly I just showed you would be just Bolt 12 under the hood. But we'll create a pay where people can pay you, and we can set it to 0 because we'll just create like just a tip jar kind of thing. Usable invoice. I'll be issuing it. Label for internal records, so I'll just call it a tip jar. Quantity is one of the features of Bolt 12 offers. I'm not going to enable it in this. Got a summary for it. It's any amount. Description is tip me. I could make it single use, but I want to make it a reusable QR. And so there's a QR. And again, you'd normally scan that, but we'll copy it over and we'll pay it from Bob here. So we'll paste it in. It recognizes that it's a Bolt 12 offer. So it gives you a summary. Offer type is pay, so I'm going to be paying. It's tip me, so it's any amount. So it asks how much would you like to send. I'll send 21, and then you can send a note with it. Thanks. There's the summary there, and we can send that. And yeah, so you get a notification over here that you've received a payment. You can then come down here and you can actually see payments. So we collect all the payments that are associated with that offer. And so you can see that last payment. You can actually click on that to go directly to the payment. And then it kind of backlinks back to the offer as well if you want to go back to the offer. But so you can see your offers here and you can see all the payments. You can see whether it's active. It's kind of a summary on what's going on with that. Yeah, so and withdrawal works in a similar way, but you'll have it there, and then someone can put it in and basically withdraw from your node the amount that you've set in there. Yeah, there's lots of cool things that offers can do, but we thought we'd start with a kind of like a basic implementation, and it was hard to find many other sort of UIs around Bolt 12 to see how other people are doing it. So we just went with what we think works best, but definitely looking for feedback on that. And then I can show what we've got for the accounting dashboard so far as well. So maybe what I'll do, the reason I put these 2 core Lightning nodes in the middle is we can get them doing some routes. So I'll create an invoice on this last one. And then I'll pay it with the first one. So that should have routed the payment through our 2 core Lightning nodes there. And I'll try doing one the other way. When I was testing it before, it didn't seem to be working. A bug with Polar and the Eclair implementation, but we'll see if it works. Yeah, there must be a bug with the Polar Eclair implementation or something. I'll just route another payment through the same way, just so we get a couple of routes. Cool. So we'll have a look over here at Bob. So we can go to Bookkeeper. And so, yeah, we just got a basic dashboard. John, who is also working on this project with me, he's actively working on some new charts and stuff, which are coming out really cool. But it's just basically here just to show how much you've routed, your fees, current APY in total. Just some basic pie charts showing which channels are doing the routing and the APY. I think the coolest thing so far, if you are using your Lightning node and you need to deal with the accounting mess, this is pretty cool. So this is thanks to Nifty for doing all the great work on Bookkeeper. We've matched the export, the download export CSV that runs on the node. We've matched the same thing here, so you can just if you use Coinly, you can download that. We can have a look at what that looks like. So this is already in the format that Coinly expects. So you can just import it, one click, and you're basically done. Unless you need to label some transactions as being transactions sent to yourself, and that's why, as I was speaking to before, that we want to add the ability to label and tag transactions and have that all stored on your device, so that this kind of accounting stuff can be at the end of the year just super automatic. But you can labels it, deposits, on-chain fees, invoices, routing, and how much and everything like that. So yeah, that's super handy if you need to do tax stuff. But yeah, a lot more to come on the Bookkeeper dashboard. So that's where we're focusing a lot of efforts. Yeah, I'm currently working on the refactoring the storage, so we're going to have a proper sort of front end DB rather than just using local storage, and trying to make it all. Yeah, there's a lot of work to do to make it a lot more efficient, but with the SQL plugin and things like that, rather than right now when you reload, it goes and fetches all the data again. And so nodes that have huge amounts of data, it's pretty bandwidth inefficient. So the idea is we kind of store the data we need in a DB, and then we can know, using the SQL plugin and other features, we can kind of just selectively grab what's new. And yeah, so I'm working on a lot of the DB stuff for that. Be able to, hopefully export sort of your metadata to other devices, things like that. I'll show you the, so you can encrypt data by selecting that and just putting in a simple PIN. That'll encrypt it, all the data that we have stored, as well as your authentication and details. So when we refresh, it pulls that data from storage, it sees it's encrypted, and if you do a different, it won't unencrypt that until you do the right number, and then it's just kept in memory. So in future, once I've got this DB set up, I think we're actually going to make it a passphrase rather than a PIN number, and we'll make it kind of mandatory from the start, so that the session key, the room, and the connection address, that will never actually ever get stored in clear text. At the moment it is, and then you can convert it to encrypted, but ideally we want to have that all just encrypted from the get-go. And then we might be able to do some interesting stuff, making it easier to connect other devices, because you can see the connection flow is not going to be easy for your average person at the moment. But hopefully, a bit of an Uncle Jim thing might be you connect one device, and then you can put up a QR code and we can export all the data as encrypted, and you can just add another device and things like that. But yeah, tons of stuff to work on, but we've got a functional app for the moment and just constantly iterating and trying to improve. That's pretty much it. If anyone has any questions, we can, I can answer those questions. Oh, let me look at the chat. Sorry if I haven't seen the chat at all this whole time. So for Office, does this work now? Can you make your own custom amount of, say, withdraw? If I have 10K sats and I let my QR code get scanned at 1K times, what happens if the QR gets scanned 1K and one time? I'd have to look into that. I mean, yeah, so Offers, it does work now. That's all working. You can make a custom amount for withdraw. So yeah, you can do like a 10K sat withdraw. If it gets scanned 1K times. Yeah, so that withdrawal will only be valid for one withdrawal. It becomes disabled automatically, I believe, as soon as you withdraw from it. Does Offers drain from the whole node balance, or can each QR get a set amount that can be withdrawn from? Yeah, no, it doesn't drain the whole node balance. So you would set the amount of what you want to enable to withdraw. Yeah, so I don't think you can set any amount for a withdrawal type, which is like an invoice request type is what they call it. So you have to set an amount for that. Will Clams allow you to manage rooms? Yeah, I think that would be, we could have a UI for creating rooms. So that might lead to you have like, the main sort of admin person who has it all set up, and then you could create rooms from the UI with more restrictions. One of the things I want to work on, there's a farmer here nearby me who accepts Bitcoin and has a couple other businesses, and I'm trying to think of like how Clams could be useful to him on a business sense. And so that's something he might want to do, is have an admin thing and then have like an iPad at his coffee shop that has just the ability to create invoices and can't spend from it. So like really fine-grained controls for runes. What is the next thing the Clams team is working on? So John, who I think is on this call, he's working on improving the accounting dashboard. So we're going to be doing profit and loss statements for node runners, just a lot more charts and things like that, so you can have more insight into what's going in your node. As part of that work, I'm refactoring the DB underneath the hood so that we can add payment tagging and things like that, which is necessary for a proper accounting setup. Then I'd like to get on-chain support in there. And then the stuff that's in the roadmap, we kind of need to prioritize, but the near future is on-chain support, DB refactoring, and accounting dashboard improvements. Will we expand into other implementations? It was built in a way that that you could swap out the back end, just in case we wanted to go that direction in the future. At the moment, not planning on supporting other implementations. Because I think there's a different approach, and I think that's what other apps have done, is like supporting all implementations. But then it gets a bit tricky when you want to support features that aren't supported by the other implementations. I won't say we won't ever do it, but at the moment, I think I like the trade-off set of having a core Lightning node either running at home or in the cloud and connecting directly to that But yeah, it'd be cool if the other implementations implemented something like Commando as well. Because right now you can connect to the other implementations in the browser, but you can't do anything with it. You can't like control their RPC or anything like that. But yeah, the other implementations have other ways of connecting and things like that. So yeah, we're keeping that in mind, but definitely just focused on just improving the features we have. There's just so much work to do. Prioritize deployment of CL Boss. Yeah, I think that would be really cool to have a UI for CL Boss and a UI to install it, like one-click install. Yeah.
Unless anyone has, oh, we have one more question.
If a stepper can be added for operations like create, offer, invoice to keep user informed of multiple input requirement. Stepper. Could you elaborate on that one? Informed of multiple input requirement. Oh, I see. I get what you mean. Yeah. So as in like, what's, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. What step? So we've got the sort of carousel thing going. You don't know how many steps you have in that process. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's been a tricky one because there's like, it depends on what they're doing. We've tried to keep the UI as similar for each sort of operation. But yeah, sometimes, especially with offers, it kind of branches out into more steps depending on what steps you select and what you do in the previous steps. But yeah, I agree. You kind of want to have a sense as a user, like how long you're going to be clicking through these menus. But yeah.
Unless we have any more questions, Aaron, this was fantastic. Thank you for your time.
No worries. Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or wherever if you have any questions or you want to help out or yeah, just anything, just hit me up.
Will do. Thank you. This is recorded, so we will be sharing this out later. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome.
Have a good day.
See y'all.